We're going to get started. We've got a pretty good stretch of ground we got to cover today. We will have the opening remarks and minutes and all that stuff, but we don't have minutes for today, right? Okay. We will have public comments, and then we've got a couple of items, the presentation by Jeff Carroll, which we're going to try to get that done within about 30 minutes. And then our big task for today is to complete item number 5, which is to go through the local government projects, sort those into long and short range projects or programs, anything else we have. The draft report is not ready for distribution yet. We still have a few things to tweak, but we're getting close. And then we will try to wrap it up by 4 o'clock. So appreciate y'all being here. If there is... well, that's all opening remarks I'm going to have. Northern? Jeb, Jonah? Bobby? Dell? Steve?
Guys, I know this presentation we're going to have is going to be real exciting and interesting about the worst intersection in Kendall County. But please keep your eye on the ball. The big item on this agenda is number 5. And it's going to take some time to get through these projects, and we just simply have to. So let's try to stay focused while we're learning. Thanks.
Yeah, just one comment is Tim Billwolf said he was going to look into the use of eminent domain by the city and the ETJ, and obviously he's not here right now, but I do hope we can get to that answer before we wrap up everything else.
Rich?
I'm good. Okay,
very good. Appreciate that all again. First opportunity for public comment. Yes, ma'am. If you would please give us your name and limit your talk to 3 minutes, and I'll give you this. It's not a bad sign. It's just...
I'll keep it short.
Okay.
My name's Kate Harrison. I live at 117 FM 474. There's a lot of talk, as you guys know, on public media about what's going on here. And sometimes it's hard to tell, unless you come to a meeting, what exactly is coming at us. So I'm just here to give you my opinion on my own land, but also to express a need for more clear directive communication from this committee to the public, maybe where they're at on social media. I don't know. I know that's very difficult to engage with people there. However, I think that that's where community is a lot of times, and it might help to put out some of those fires with factual information. So my husband, Corey, and I have 10 acres here in Bernie, which we cherish and will not develop. We do not plan on selling it. We've worked towards agricultural valuation and now working towards wildlife valuation on our property. We've taken great care to weed out invasive plant species and plant and nurture native trees, forbs, grasses, and flowers. We keep bees. We ride horses. We live, in short, a hill country lifestyle. I think that these are the values that many people who have moved here have sought out, is that sort of lifestyle. We understand that development is coming, but we wish to help control the manner in which the community and the environment are managed. The hill country draws families like ours who value native land and traditional Texas hill country activities. One of the things that binds our community together is these values and these activities. So we want to just make sure that when we look at things like a loop and broad development, that we really advocate for landowner rights and to protect our precious native fragile environment, which we risk losing if we don't plan well. So thanks very much for taking a minute to listen to me.
Thank you very much.
You mind if I ask a quick follow-up? Ms. Harrington, are you at the corner of Spring Creek Road and 474?
No,
you're one further back.
One further back from that. It's my neighbor, Courtney, who would have been here today, but most of us have work during the meeting times.
Thank you.
Any other commenters? Ms. McCarthy?
John, I was going to comment on her comments. When the legislative session is in session, they need to support the county and others.
You need your microphone.
No. They need to support the county and others in trying to get the rules, the laws changed to where the county has more authority on density and things like that. Because if we don't, the politicians, this is what's happened to us. They have leaned towards the developers and the realtors and the manufacturers So y'all need to work with the legislation.
Go get them.
Good job.
Ms. McCarthy.
Yes, Wanda McCarthy, Ammon Road. There was some very key discussion points by the committee last meeting, specifically toward the end, and as a result of that committee discussion, I commented and thanked members that stood firm in your committee mission statement and refused to approve new mapping of loops for greenfield roads over non-developer properties. However, glutton of punishment that I am, I listened again, and I realized that I failed to thank everyone that held that line. I specifically mentioned and thanked Jonah, but failed to acknowledge others who joined Jonah in that position. And I would like to acknowledge Northern and Bob and Bitsy, in addition to Jonah, in my gratitude of not giving in to the advocating for more loops, especially since loops drawn across our county was the reason the committee was formed in the first place. And as Bitsy mentioned briefly, I urge you to make a stand as a committee formally opposing loops, even those loops in the Master Thoroughfare Plan. And as a committee, please stand firm and adamantly oppose any taking of land not specifically being developed. Please state unequivocally that the convenient in-between parcels, as Mr. Banwolf mentioned, only 5 or so, deserve protection from the zealous, overreaching, aggressive taking of our land specifically for the benefit of high-density development. As we who have been covered with a line for coming on 2 decades know full well that the rhetoric of subdivision rules for transportation development is not truly followed and is just that, rhetoric. Case in point, just last week, the ranches at Creekside, working with city staff, were trying to take neighboring rural estate land of a 30-year resident so that a few more houses can be squeezed in where a master thoroughfare plan was previously drawn. This rural estate will never be further subdivided, being deed restricted, so the rhetoric of future subdivision development had no bearing on that discussion. P&Z correctly denied the zoning for this area that included a proposed platting with the redesigned thoroughfare over their neighbor's land. However, like an insolent child not getting away, the developer and staff are coming back again to try to have this decision overruled at the next city council meeting. So the fight is very real for all of us in the county with a line on our properties. The rhetoric does not placate us, as the reality is painfully clear. So I ask again, please do not stop your work until you stand up for the citizens in this community, being a citizens committee, and unequivocally voice your opposition to loops. And most importantly, please provide an adequate alternative for transportation for our region that does not include a loop, not just in the short term, but also the long term. As Mr. Banwolf plainly pointed out last week, this committee has not approved a valid solution to long-term transportation issues, especially at HERF and 46. Please do not stop until your mission is complete. Please provide an alternative to transportation besides a loop.
You're at 3:30, please.
Please fulfill your mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCarthy. Anyone else in the audience? Anybody online? Doesn't appear to be any hands up. If not, we will move to item 4, which is a presentation by Jeff Carroll. Yeah, please do.
Afternoon. I'm just going to drive from here. It'll be easier for me. Quickly, the picture you have here today is from around 2001. I moved to Bernie in 2000. First came to Bernie in 01 and moved here in 02, and this is what the intersection looked like, where Esser was completely north-south. It didn't have the curve in it, and Herf Road was a 2-lane road that kind of came in a little differently. In 2005-ish, the city of Bernie didn't condemn, didn't do eminent domain or anything like that. It purchased a piece of property, and it rerouted Esser over so it made a nice 4-way intersection. And then later, in 13 is when the county took the 2-lane HERF road and made it into a 4-lane HERF road. So that's just some kind of general history of the projects that have happened. I know John, before the meeting, John was kind of giving me some history of stuff that happened in the 80s when it used to be lower. Some interesting facts as I've been researching this is the construction plans, the approved construction plans that HERF Road was built off of, called for an ADT of 3,500 traffic a day, and it projected a traffic of 7,600 trips per day in 2032. So when we counted it last year, or sorry, when we counted it in the COVID year, it was 16,499. And when TxDOT counted it last year, it was 15,400. So already we're plus or minus double the average daily traffic that the road was designed for. In 2021, after we were talking with TxDOT, they came in and put a right turn overlap. So the northbound HERF Road can now there's a green light now where they can make a right turn movement when there's a left turn. We actually had a lot of people call and complain about it, but it actually is, from traffic projections and traffic studies we did before to what we did after, it actually is improving the intersection. It did previously have a dual right, and then they took away the dual right, and now it's just a one right turn lane. It models, and our queuing studies have shown that it has actually improved it slightly. And then just for all the other history, just to bring and mention, we've all talked about it already in this meeting before, but that whole area is in the floodplain. The picture on the right is from the Memorial Day 2015 floods that Jonah actually took this picture. He took it in video. I took a picture from his video. But that's several feet underwater whenever it does flood. So just back history on this particular intersection itself. So in February of 22, if you remember, the city hired a consultant, and we've been doing miscellaneous traffic studies and modeling of all of town, including this intersection. This is the traffic counts from February of 2022 from the intersection. And I've kind of aligned it so you can see it kind of makes the same directions. But the top turning movement is that northbound right turn lane. Again, this is the AM count, where it's 772. So you can see the number. That's how many cars turned in a 1 hour period. So northbound right turn was the highest. The next one was 592, that's the westbound through movement, followed by eastbound through at 435, and then followed by the 429, which is the westbound right turn onto Esser, and then 417, which is the westbound left turn onto Esser. So those are the top 5 turning movements. I think all of us know that the right turn movement is the high. What I found real interesting is this is the AM. If you go to the PM, the number 1, number 2, number 3 turning movements are all the same. So the intersection, most of us would think that people are going one way in the morning and coming back and the other way in the afternoon. It's not so. The number 1, the number 2, and the 3 are the same. So northbound right turn is the highest at 772. The westbound through is 592. The eastbound through is 435. And then number 4 and 5 flip-flopped, where the westbound right turn onto Esser is 429. Nope, I didn't flip my page. The westbound left turn is 394, and the westbound right turn is 340. So the number 4 and number 5 movements just flip-flopped. But it was real interesting to me to see that the intersection, the number 1, 2, and 3 turning movements are the same for AM and PM, with, again, that right turn movement being the dramatic one. And so that shows that it's not necessarily a commuter or people going to work or people coming home to work. It's certain site uses in the general area of this intersection are what driving the traffic patterns at that intersection.
Jeff?
Yes?
Would you also say it's not necessarily school traffic?
I would say it's probably school traffic.
It probably wouldn't be school
Yes.
traffic.
I think it's people going to and from the schools.
Got it.
So I'm saying, it's not people commuting to San Antonio. It's people commuting to uses here in Vernon.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
So we took all of these counts, and our consultant, the city's consultant, put together a model for all of the city of Bernie, similar to the one that Sharma put together earlier that we presented at the meeting. But we have one for the entire city, some of the key intersections. So this is AM level of service, and we've talked before, but level of service is just like school grades. Today, existing conditions, it's an F. So it would be the worst grade you can get for level of service. With the average queue lengths, the queue lengths are the little numbers and feet kind of in the grayed out boxes. So we have kind of average queue lengths of our model, and we've been watching traffic as it happens out there and tweaking the model just to look as it works. So we've been looking at what we can do modeling wise, and we've modeled a bunch of different alternatives to see what we can do. So here's AM and PM, kind of shows the distances and delay. Our consultant and the city staff have come up with a handful of different options, and we've modeled all of them with the existing traffic flow and then using a 10-year and a 20-year projections. So what we call alternate 1A is to make a full-time dedicated right turn lane. And what we've been working with TxDOT now, why TxDOT won't let us do that today, is the southbound Esser can't make a left turn and stay in their left lane. So anyone who's driven, I know I've pulled trailers through that intersection, or anyone who's driven a trailer or semi-truck, you can't stay in the left lane because of that island. So if you look at my cursor, you should be able to see the cursor, but kind of this little nose of the island. If we were to go in and remove kind of the nose of that island and put it back as striping, and then we'd be able to do some other improvements over here, and that would let us get a full-time dedicated right turn lane. We've been talking with TxDOT about what we can do there, so we're calling that alternate 1A, is to get that full-time dedicated right turn lane. Alternate 1B is a very similar version to what Mr. Sharma presented to us earlier in the presentations, or a couple months back, where we looked at adding a bunch of different turn lanes. And so I have my little cheat sheet here. It was northbound was going to be one left, one through, and two rights. Eastbound was going to be one left, one through, and one right. Southbound, one left, one through, one right. And westbound, two left, one through, and one unchannelized right turn. So if we went and did all of those intersection improvements, that's what we're calling alternate 1B.
Quick question.
Sure.
So we're looking at which image here, the left or the right?
So the left is the existing condition model.
Okay.
And again, it doesn't line up perfectly, but it's just the model overlaid with the aerial. And the right is the updated with more turn lanes.
And I'm just curious if you can elaborate on the reasoning for the eliminating the channelized right northbound turn from Esser onto Esser from westbound 46.
Because we're actually modeling it as two right turns. So we modeled it as two right turns instead of just one. So we don't have it as, the alternate 1A would be just a right turn that can go free flow at all times. This alternate 1B is two rights.
You're thinking of the northbound traffic turning
Correct.
east? I was thinking about
west.
I'm thinking about the traffic that's traveling west on 46 to turn north onto Esser.
Oh, yes.
You eliminated that little channelized exit there?
So we have it, the picture doesn't show it, but as I read it, yeah, westbound, one unchannelized right turn lane westbound. So the model doesn't have it as the big sweeping
Okay, I thought I
turn.
heard you say without it, or you're eliminating.
No, it's with, yeah, sorry, with. And
Jeff,
yeah,
Jeff, but it would have that cut in the median
correct.
pull back. Okay.
Correct.
got it. So it's 1A improved is what 1B is.
So 1A is just making a full-time right turn
That's
lane.
it.
That's it.
That's it.
1B is going and adding 6 other turn lanes out
To
there.
1A.
Correct, to 1A.
Got it. Okay. Improved 1A is 1B.
Correct.
Got it.
Correct. So then we also looked at a couple other concepts. So we've talked about in this meeting in the past too, but a dual lane roundabout at this location. So we modeled a dual lane roundabout at this intersection. And another alternative that we haven't talked about as much in this meeting, but we've looked at other options. And for those of you that have traveled up and down 281, which they call a super street, or anyone who's spent time on the East Coast where they have jug handles, or other streets where they basically, you have to make a right to go left. We've modeled another alternative here, kind of using a super street concept, where basically you flat out remove the left turn movement at the intersection. We have alternate 3, which is the northeast corner, and alternate 4, which is the southwest corner. And that street, we have it kind of in an arc in the northeast corner for alternate 3, but that could be in an arc kind of as it's drawn there today, which would get us out of the floodplain, or it could be dead straight. If you could picture Highway 46 just continuing dead straight into Esser, we can model it the same way, and the results are very similar. But that's alternate 3 and alternate 4s.
Which one is which, Jeff? So which?
Alternate 3 is the northeast quadrant, and alternate 4 is the southwest quadrant. And I'd comment, as I mentioned at last week's meeting, the alternate 3 is completely on property the city owns. But again, this would be no left turns. Any direction you go to that intersection, there'd be no left turns. So if you were heading northbound on Herf, and you wanted to make a left onto River, you would have to go up to this new bypass road, make a right, and kind of loop back around. Or if you were heading west, on Highway 46 and you wanted to make a left onto Herf, you would have to basically make a right and then make a left onto Esser.
Jeff, the one on the left side, that property is for sale right now.
Yes.
It's also got a bridge on it.
It's a very small bridge, but yes,
Yeah,
that's
it's a
on the
small
bridge.
bridge,
Yes.
but it does. And it also has access to Fry Street. So, but to go down and tie into Herf Road, that's through private property right now.
Correct, yes. The southwest quadrant is through private property. It's just a modeling exercise. So as I mentioned, we have these models put together. So using today existing traffic rates, we went and modeled all 4 of these concepts with today's traffic rates, and then we used a 4% growth rate for 10 years and then another 10 years. So we did a 10 and a 20-year projection, which 4% is a little less than the ISD's model, but we're trying to kind of balance the growth rate there a little bit. So looking at the projections, the 10-year projections, and again, just the first graph across the top is the existing traffic rates today. So existing conditions 2022, it says, I mentioned earlier, it's F. If we go and did the alternate 1A, which is just doing a right turn, free flow right turn, it would increase it from an F to a D, and it would decrease the delay. The really thing to watch is the delay, the number of seconds of delay. So that number is how many seconds you would be sitting at the intersection. So the delay would decrease from 187 seconds to 44 seconds in the AM. If we looked at doing the alternate 1B, which was adding all the additional extra turn lanes, it would increase it to a level of service of C, which again decreases the level of service. We also looked at the alternate 2, which is the roundabout. That was also a level of service C. And then we looked at the alternate 3 and alternate 4s, which would actually increase it to a level service of A and level for A and B for alternate 3, and B, C's, and D's for alternate 4. Now, we took all of those 4 models and we increased the traffic by 4% over a 10-year growth. So 4% per year over 10 years. And then we reran all the models again. And so if you look at the lower table, that would be the traffic with the higher 4% growth rate over 10 years. And it was really interesting to see that all of our alternatives, with the exception of alternative 3, all go back to the level of service of F over a 10-year period. So we could go, basically the findings of theirs, if I go spend millions of dollars to go put all those extra turn lanes in, it would buy us 10 years and then be back in the exact same spot 10 years from now. So then using this, we actually ran for another 10 years because we've been having conversations with TxDOT about this. And TxDOT wanted to see a 20-year projection, so I don't have the graph here, the chart, but we ran alternative 3 using another 10 years, and it actually would bring alternative 3 to a level of service of F as well. So using the growth factor rate, assuming the county and the city and the whole state of Texas all continues to grow at 4% a year. If we do nothing or we do one of these projects, it'd still get back to an F, using alternative number 3. So the city has been continuing to talk to TxDOT about alternative number 3. And that's one that has also come up in our drainage master plan as a way that we could do a dry lane through plus or minus that location. So that's why the city initially started talking with TxDOT about that as a dry lane alternative. And as we've progressed in our traffic models, it has appeared to be a transportation alternative as well. Those are the volume and data that I had. I don't know if you guys have any questions for me on these modeling.
Okay, I can hear Bitsy's voice really quiet.
Somewhere, yeah.
I'm not going to tell you where I am. So the question that I have is, if you determine that this is more local traffic, then are there other, is it actually, any of these actually, it would improve it, but is the presumption is it's doing it for local traffic or out of county traffic?
So our traffic volumes are all based on our February counts. And yeah, so we don't have origin and destination as part of those counts. It was just counts through that actual intersection. Obviously, we think the high schools have a very big impact on this intersection. So again, in 20 years, I'm looking at Rich, but in 20 years, hope there might be another high school down south or down east, which might decrease the amount of traffic going to Champion over time. So it's something that, as other schools might change the actual site traffic to this location.
Thank you.
Jeff, can you show the picture of alternative 3 again?
Sure.
So the one aspect that I wonder about, so that little northeast section, that's on the property that the city of Bernie recently purchased, is that correct?
Correct.
So no eminent domain needed there. And it also strikes me that that's probably, that resolves the biggest problem, that turning south onto Esser movement from 46 traffic going west, right? That's where the highest numbers were. I mean, you had the highest numbers turning east onto 46, northbound traffic on
Correct.
on HERF, turning east on 46, and then also turning south onto HERF.
Correct.
So that northeast section on city land resolves the biggest part of the problem.
Correct.
The southwest section would require a lot of land acquisition through a lot of private lands, and essentially the purpose of that section would be to allow River Road traffic to turn left onto Esser, which is right? Isn't that basically the goal? And to me, that's a very small percentage of the movement, and I just don't. I don't see that as necessarily being worth all of the expense and all of the heartache of doing that.
No. It also splits the northbound HERF left turn movement, which was a very small count as well. That instead of going up and through and making the right to make a right to come back through the same intersection, you could make that left turn and go through. But because that turning movement was a very small percentage, it didn't change in our model.
I mean, personally, I would like to explore alternatives that used that northeast section and eliminate it. I also think adding another stoplight onto River Road right there could cause a lot more congestion on that road. So I'd just be curious about exploring alternatives that don't use that southwest.
Yeah. So again, alternative number 3, I have a picture, but alternative 3 is the northeast one, and alternative 4 is the southwest one.
I see.
So I have one picture, but I modeled them completely separately.
Oh, really? So they're modeled independently of each
Correct.
other. So when we look at that graph of the numbers,
Correct.
would you mind pulling that graph back up, or the table back up? Thank you.
So yeah, alternative 3 is only the northeast, and alternative 4 is
Okay.
only the southwest.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
So it's something I can go make an alternative 5 with the two of them together.
Hey, Jeff,
Yes, sir.
looking at put that sketch up again. Looking at that, y'all aren't proposing to do anything at the crossing, so that any flooding that may have, what you actually done here is got a bypass, a temporary 1 hour, 2 hour, 1 day bypass.
Dry route.
And you won't have to redo all the
Correct.
existing stuff in there.
Correct, yeah. If we put that northeast quadrant road in, that would be outside of the floodplain, so that road would stay dry, and in a way would eliminate the need to go raise that other intersection up 8-9 feet into the air.
Well, see, that would be good. The other thing is, you mentioned taking, and I think I showed you a sketch I made, taking 46 going straight to Esser Road with a roundabout there, then drop down and a roundabout at the lower part, all out of the water.
Mhm.
So, I mean, that's something else that would be free flow for the whole thing.
Correct. And we've modeled it a couple different ways, but it models the same again. Whether Highway 46 just continued dead straight, we could make a Y or an alternate way to turn, or we can make it where you actually have to make a right turn. We've modeled it a couple different ways there. But really, the key part is removing the turning movements from the existing intersection.
Well, in
That
doing
allows
that-
us to spread the time over the signal.
Yeah, and doing what you're talking about, you won't have to redo all Herb Road at Esser.
Correct.
And then the only downside to that is going across so much land that you'd have to acquire when that one piece of property is for sale now
On the southwest, correct.
on the southwest part. That means you could also extend Fry Street up to River Road and not have to buy anything else.
That's an option as well, correct. I mean, this could, the southwest deal could somehow branch over to Fry or make the two of them as well.
Well, just take Fry up to River Road and then don't worry about this other. You've done the same thing. You've gotten around the flooding.
Correct.
And Jeff, to be clear, on Esser Road North, is that indicating that there will be a roundabout at that location?
No.
Not a stoplight?
So we've modeled it as a roundabout, and then we've also modeled it as what Ammon Road, where it enters into Highway 46 today, we call it green T, where the westbound traffic continues through, but the eastbound has a light. We've modeled that as a green T as well. Eventually, I can't remember if it's the 2032 or the 2042, eventually the traffic volume exceeds the roundabout capacity in our projections. So we're looking at something besides a roundabout. If we
Okay,
look
I was
at-
just trying to understand what that little.
That is a
arrow-
roundabout signal, correct.
Okay.
That symbol for roundabouts.
Jeff, this alternative 3 continues to include the section of 46 from the traffic signal symbol down to Esser Road on the existing 46 alignment. Is that correct?
Yes. So that's
So what would happen if you just simplified everything and you started at the traffic signal over there and just bent it, just went west and then bent it to where it lined up very well with Esser Road? And the continuous section, carried it on down to Esser. And then you have plenty of property there, I believe, to where you could bring Esser into the north with a, you could get, I don't know how far north that piece of property y'all bought goes, but can you show that?
You can sort of see this fence line right here.
Okay, so you have plenty of room to maybe establish some additional queuing lanes and as you approach that.
Yeah.
And maybe discontinue that southern section of what's 46 now to all but local traffic that goes to the City Park Road and to the, I guess it's City Park Road. It seems like that might really simplify things and free up your,
So you're basically, this road, if you're heading west on 46, you would just go across and you would just kind of curve into like this.
right.
I want to say we have, the consultant ran a model. I don't remember the results of that one, but I can go back and look at that and give you an update.
I mean, it seems to me it's a much simpler intersection, and it makes the movement of 46 into Herf Road, it strengthens the argument for making Herf Road Highway 46.
Correct.
And I think with a little bit of additional work on Esser north of that new alignment and west of where the problem intersection is, that you could do a whole lot there to improve the efficiency of that, and then somehow work on long-term the hike and bike connection back to the city park facilities.
Oh, yeah, that's something the city's really interested is the hike and bike connection and the walkability from this location to this location. It's pretty poor right now. We're trying to come up with ways to improve that.
Well, I mean, from a short-term standpoint, I'd say it would be nice to know the modeling for that and pursue that as short-term, with the long-term intention being that you somehow get the pedestrian connection made there.
Yeah, but I'll follow up with our consultant and get you an answer.
I also have one more follow-up, which is, I'm going to assume that when you modeled these, you modeled them all completely independently. I would imagine that there's combinations of alternative 1 and 2 that could also happen in addition to alternative 3, where you retrofit that intersection some, make there be a dedicated right turn.
Yeah, so 1A could be modeled as part of 3, correct?
Right. And so it's possible that you end up with a better level of service, just kind of tweaking some of those other pieces. But Don, I mean, I think your idea definitely deserves exploration as well.
Well, based on what I'm seeing here, the existing intersection is no left turns. So there won't be any signals there.
No, there'd still be signals, there just wouldn't ever be a left turn signal. And so you'd still have signals to go through, just similar if you're driving up and down 281 right now, there's signals, it's just you're not allowed to make left turns at key locations.
Yeah, I think that could be looked at some different ideas in there.
All right, Jeff, thank you very much.
No problem.
How soon, is that something that you could maybe report to us on in 2 weeks? Or?
Sure, I can give you the option that you mentioned about, I can ask
Okay.
consultants to run that one. And I want to say we have already run it, but I'll have to look.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, Jeff.
No problem.
And Erica, let the record reflect that Bitsy joined us by Zoom. She's joining us by Zoom. Glad to have you with us, Bitsy. Okay. Behind your agenda are 2 sheets. This is my understanding of what we have left to go through. These are mostly local government projects. And so some of them are pedestrian in nature. And I think that they go into a group of projects that the projects committee suggested are whole, things that are, the first one is an example where there's a roadway blocked by a gate. And that maybe that's pedestrian or if that's vehicular on Millstone.
Millstone, we actually said was out of our recommendations range, or
It's out of our purview, so are we rejecting that one then?
we did in the first round.
Okay.
It may still be within Bernie ISD's range, but it is outside of Kendall County.
Okay. Well, we have several places, in the narrative, we talk about the need to remove those gates, but we haven't identified all of them. So if that's one of them that fits that category, we can add it as a specific example. Okay, the next one, Project 3, committee source. Is that a vehicular gate?
I believe all of these were on the same kind of category that we didn't know.
Okay, that's okay. Project 10, same thing.
Correct.
Project 15, Ben, this is one of where I think there was a general desire to increase the use of roundabouts. And we have included that in a policy narrative, so we can delete that comment. Is that, you comfortable with that?
Makes sense to me.
Okay. The next one, Project 20, is over there. Enterprise Parkway is off of Scenic Loop and extends part of the way toward the frontage road on eastbound I-10. But there was a suggestion that we extend that all the way to the frontage road.
And most of the activity or the zoning on Enterprise Parkway, is that industrial, commercial type?
Yes.
Gosh, I recall we had a lot of discussion about that, and I can't remember any of what we said.
We did talk about there being two elbows in it, two 90s in it to slow down traffic is one thing we said that would get around cutting through the property.
What would it entail to achieve that?
It would entail the acquisition of right-of-way and someone to build the road. The right-of-way does not exist.
So everything.
I believe we discussed having Bernie include this in their
Major thoroughfare plan. What it does is it serves to provide sort of a blow-off valve for Scenic Loop. Right, I think there was, had it been there during the construction of Scenic Loop and I-10, that would have been a much more convenient access to people wanting to go south or east on I-10.
I think part of the conversation also included, once the repairs and the changes are made at Cascade Caverns and Scenic Loop Road, this project might not be necessary, if this is the one that I'm recalling.
That was a different one, I believe. That was the one at Starbucks, maybe?
No, it was definitely on the south end of the town. Is Jeff still there? Maybe he can help me remember.
The city, when I started at the city, there was a project in our CIP list for this road extension. And it was mostly because of as Commissioner Durden mentioned, the intersection with Scenic Loop and I-10. So somehow it was on the list when I started at the city. And it's just something that the city hasn't taken any action on because we don't have the right of way to do it. But it's something that we were looking at on our thoroughfare plan update, basically extending it all the way to 10, just as someone mentioned.
I just think it makes sense. I mean, you can beat the dead horse on it, but to me it makes sense as another really valid connection.
But it supports a grid style system as opposed to the loop style system. And, if it doesn't ever develop, then, it wouldn't be put there. The only argument I can come up with against it is the size of the property that's there doesn't justify the expense of dedicating the right of way and building the road. But your rough proportionality would kick in at that point. Is that correct?
Correct. Again, just getting the right of ways, the biggest battle half the time for us. Yes.
So through thoroughfare, it probably is very achievable. Through thoroughfare plan and just a little bit of road acquisition.
It's possible it appears to be a very developable property if it were to ever be developed.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to suggest we consider moving it to the major thoroughfare plan statements.
Yep.
Any objection to moving this to major thoroughfare plan?
Negative.
Hearing none, it's moved. Okay. Next one, Project 23, committee source. This is Old Fredericksburg Road from the eastern end of the Cascade Caverns MPO project. I think it's a 4-lane section where they do a left turn lane, correct, Jeff?
Correct.
Extending it to the east and then continuing to follow Old Fredericksburg Road all the way to Balconas Creek. That includes portions of Project 31, and so I would suggest we couple those two together.
I'm confused. I mean, 23 is an old Fred Road, which is a couple miles away from 31. I mean, 23 is a couple miles away from 31, so why would they be considered together?
Well, it's basically the trail through there. I mean, Cascade Caverns Road right now, at the end of where it enters South Glen, goes south, and I guess that's where it turns into Old Fredericksburg Road,
Right.
and it just continues on. I think
Can we see 31?
31 is farther down.
Well, but the reason being is the piece.
I saw there was two 31s. I apologize. I see there's a crowdsourced 31 and a committee source 31.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
If you don't do it, it's piecemeal.
I think 31 is more important right now. I drive that all the time. The second 31 is more important than 23, although 23, I could tell Kendall County's always out there maintaining it because people still drive pretty quick through there, and they don't use the road, they use the dirt shoulder to clip that in.
Well, there's no way around the traffic if there's somebody queued up to go left.
And they just go off the street, off the roadway to make a curved, make a smoother left turn or left curve or right curve. And it holds water, it develops a mess on the side of the road.
I think you need both of those.
They are needed, yeah.
Do you want to put them together or do them separately?
Just personally, from just having to create the two projects visually, I think if we combine them, it's going to get busy.
Okay. Well,
Um,
because you've been so good, Northern, I'm going to defer to you.
I agree with Northern, keep them separate, they're two different issues.
Okay, so let's go back. So do you want them short, 23 short or long?
So what are we talking about? Probably short.
The development pressure, I believe short's the right.
The whole thing.
And who would do that? Is that local governments?
Yeah,
County.
this is all proposed local government for now if we need to move something out, but generally this is what hadn't found a home yet.
I do recall there being a few homes that are near those corners, right? If I recall right, so this would require acquisition of some corners there. I just wanted to.
If we soften the curves, it might require that, but I think the thing was, we want to go to a 3-lane section on 23, and then 31 was more of a 5-lane section. Is that right, Jeff?
Sorry, what was that again?
Sorry. The Fredericksburg Road, Old Fredericksburg Road improvements were envisioned to be a 3-lane section, whereas the Cascade Caverns extension to South Bend was a 5-lane section.
Our current MPO submittal for Cascade Caverns was 4 lanes of travel with a left turn,
Right,
with
yeah.
medians with left turn openings.
Yeah, and we would extend that on to,
Correct.
yeah. Okay. So, Jonah, you asked a question.
Yeah, it was simply that if those little red circles, if those required right-of-way acquisition, are we really, is the recommendation to, it says improve right angle curves within existing right-of-way. If the recommendation is to dramatically shift those, I could see there being a significant number of people that push back against that. And
Yeah,
wanted to fully understand what we were supporting here.
I don't think there was any specific intent there. I do know that we recently had at Commissioners Court a subdivision plat submitted for the Dunnenberg tract, which actually is right at one of these corners. And it basically made it into a 90-degree intersection. And I don't think that's necessarily going to go, but it might. But I think there's a recognition that those are not good for traffic from everybody in that area. 3 or 4.
Don, that Dunnenberg tract, is that the one that goes from Old Fred all the way over to IH-10?
Yes. Mhm. So back to the question, 23 long or short?
I'd say all those should be short.
Short.
No objections to short? Short, okay. While we're at it, let's look at 31 committee source. Short again?
Yep.
Any objection to short? Okay, it is short. Okay, now jumping back up to project 24.
Don, just to be clear, extend the roadway configuration of the MPO. Is that language, I remember we had some debate about 4 lanes versus 3 lanes at this spot. Is the reason for that language being vague, it's just basically whatever the MPO comes up with, we'll extend it there?
I believe that's correct. It doesn't make sense to change that. I
Sure.
think it's going to be what they requested.
Correct. The MPO submittal that we made a year ago
Yeah.
had 4 lanes.
Where did that go, though? I remember we had some discussion about the possibility of
We
revising
did,
that.
we did, and we're waiting. So we were selected and awarded to be at the MPO project, but with TxDOT speak, we have to wait for November of this year to be added to the TIP, the Transportation, can't even remember the acronym.
Improvement plan.
Improvement plan.
Transportation Improvement Plan. TxDOT and the MPO won't even talk to us about the design of the project until we're actually added into the TIP. So we're in a waiting mode right now.
Is the description for this one correct as far as that project?
Which one?
The
one on the
MPO
screens?
project?
I'm sorry, which one?
The MPO project he was just speaking about.
Number 31? Okay.
What we submitted doesn't have bike lanes. We did
Okay.
shared use paths on both sides of the road.
Okay.
Okay. So we're ready to go to 24?
We are.
Okay. Herf and Old San Antonio, this is a recommendation to replace the signal at Herf and Old San Antonio with the roundabout.
Well, based on Jeff's presentation, it may not be a roundabout there. So maybe we just drop that and he'll come back with something else later on.
Wait, I'm sorry, this is Herf and Old San Antonio
Yeah.
Road.
This is back up at Konkoski and.
Okay, hold that.
But,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
that's a
the,
good place for a roundabout.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes.
but the counts going north on Herf,
Yeah.
taking a right, are hitting 1,000 feet long and are going to be F now and F later. So, do you want? don't
I think that'll completely change when there's a protected right turn lane.
Well, we can say this should be done subsequent to improvements at the Herf and River Road intersection. 'Cause
It's
you know-
also impacted by there's a drainage
Drainage.
study going on this right now. So that, either way, it impacts it, right?
Correct, and I can go back and look, just like I'm going to research my presentation, but I can go back and look. We did some traffic volume projections here too. Again, eventually roundabouts, if the traffic volume gets to a certain point, it exceeds the capacity of a roundabout. And I'll go back and look at this one as well.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll delay action on this for now. Okay, the next one, Fry Street, Hickman to River Road. This is the extension of Fry Street across the Cibolo from existing Fry to River Road.
That would fit right in one of Jeff's ideas.
And I think we talked about that one being looked at, just studied to see if it affects the neighborhood. And if
Yeah.
it did not, it would proceed as a project.
Well, it was discussed that it's an emergency vehicle only. It's not for normal transportation.
That was one option, but I think the study would look at
The impact
Full.
and the.
with full vehicle, not just emergency. Unless I misunderstood our dialogue.
I thought I got the sense of the committee that there'd be such a community uprising to turn Fry Street into a thoroughfare that just putting gates and locks for the EMS people to get through in an emergency was the more palatable option.
Well, if we did that, you're talking about a significant investment over the creek and the bridge for just emergency traffic. So I thought my memory was that's why we wanted to look at the volumes of local traffic, not just emergency vehicles, to see the impact.
Okay, I just
It's pretty expensive to build the
Yeah.
Very
And if-
temporary or.
And if, now that we have that idea that Jeff brought, having that southwest jug handle, there's that bridge, and there's probably going to be ways to connect it to that jug handle. So the same concept that comes in here to have a north-south, now you can continue up Fry north, and then somehow get onto that jug handle to get to River Road instead of crossing right where we show it.
Hickman, I'm just looking at the picture, but Hickman could be extended due east to Herf.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just having a hard time thinking about what benefit would justify this amount of cost, because River Road is just back-to-back vehicles so often. We're putting another stoplight there and injecting another source of delays into the middle of River Road when there's two bridges that aren't that far away from here, and just the cost of building another bridge is going to, I just have to be convinced that there's a significant benefit to come from this, and I'm not currently convinced, and so I'm going to propose we don't move this one forward. I could be convinced otherwise, but it seems like a major project for kind of in my mind, I'm confused what that there'd be a huge benefit from it.
It's a connectivity benefit is what we're talking about. So it plays into Jeff's conversation too about 3 and 4.
Well, I think there's some question first. The threshold question is it a emergency only access? If it's emergency only, it's not going to really help connectivity except during flood conditions.
Well, right now on Fry Street, it's open all the way to where it dead ends at the creek. And there's not a whole lot of traffic. But right now, you've only got Main Street, Herf Road. That's it. So you actually need a third high water crossing that, it's not necessarily going to be a high impact traffic street, but at least we'll have a serviceable use. And
Okay, we got one argument for, one argument against. Some of the other guys weigh in on
It's
this.
no different than what Jeff is proposing, just a few hundred yards down the street.
Rich, you're sneaking out of here. Which way do you vote? You can leave.
I see the wisdom of extending, I'm saying Hickman all the way to Herf, which is separate than what John's talking about. I have mixed emotions on that.
Okay.
When you say, do you mean Fry or Hickman?
No, Hickman.
No, Hickman.
East-west.
Hickman, yeah.
But that,
East-west.
What have you gained when you're going from Hickman to Herf?
you're causing another signalized intersection
Yeah.
or another conflict point there, too close to
I'm
the
saying
intersection.
You got another way across the river.
This one was discussed 2 meetings ago, and it receives support over, it receives support on the study to allow traffic all the way through to River Road.
Yeah.
And I remember the dialogue, Bob, about should it not go that way, the study could always look at the costs or look at the concept of an emergency access. It may die if you did a benefit cost analysis. It may die on the floor as a emergency, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
But the way is written, the way it's written on the document right now, I believe was the way you approved it last time, or it received support last time.
The study, neighborhood study is what was said.
I'm sorry, sir?
The neighborhood study, is that?
Neighborhood study, correct. Because it could cause some peril.
I mean, if the need is, if there is a really defined need for emergency vehicles to have another access point there, there's an existing bridge that could be improved upon. Maybe there's a way where the city can go into some sort of private-public partnership with the landowner to improve their bridge, make it survive a 100-year flood or whatever, in order, or a 10-year flood in Bernie. As part of that bargain, they would allow emergency vehicles to use the driveway through the property in certain situations.
At the same cost, if in that study, the city looks at only building enough for a fire truck, they can do it as well. You're saying have the property owner pay to increase the capacity of their bridge versus the city doing it. That's
Yeah,
what
I
you're
don't know,
saying.
Jeff, do you know, is that bridge, does it clear 100 here, or what is it?
I don't know anything about it.
It's a small bridge.
I think it's going to be very, very skeptical that you can evaluate it and determine that it's
Yeah.
good to run a fire truck across.
Because that, like I say, that property's for sale right now for $3 million something.
Is there that much demand to go northbound? Like, looking at the traffic volumes northbound on Main Street at River Road, that's not the congestion point.
It's not.
And so from a traffic point, I don't see a need for it, from an emergency point possibly, but from a traffic.
I don't really see it from the emergency point. Would that be just in the case that Herf Road is completely flooded and you need another way around? Well, you have Main Street Bridge that's a couple 100 yards away that, maybe if Main Street got washed out and that bridge is covered and you need a third alternative right there, but.
I think putting more effort into the Herf intersection would fix this problem. We've already said that's a good idea, right?
And there's also School Street that we've talked about, improvements to School Street.
Mm-hmm. And I don't think we're going to solve all the problems of every project that's presented to us. It's just vet them quickly and put them on a short and long-term list, right? So.
I'm just going to use the restroom if there's a vote, my vote.
Jonah said, approve it right here. Left it. I'm kidding.
I'm going to suggest this as a method of moving forward, that we consolidate 24 and 25, or is that the same project?
It's pretty much the same thing.
That we consolidate those two projects into a single project, with the short-term effort be to study the feasibility of doing that. Can everybody live with that as a short-term project?
Yes, but I don't know what Jonah will say to that one.
He can live with it.
He was okay with the study.
I'll vote for it.
And that if the study shows that it's warranted, then we can move forward with the extension. Okay, Jonah can live with that too? All right, it's consensus, we agreed Jonah's voting yes.
He can live with it.
Okay, so that took care of 24 and 25. Okay, 26, jumping across town. Johns Road and School Street, install a roundabout, and there was a remark, if feasible. I think there was a question about whether we could get it in there.
It'll fit there.
And there was also a question about the prudence of putting a roundabout at a place where we have basically a school crossing guards there now.
Two.
Yeah, and I think there's also whenever it's looked at the design and feasibility of putting a roundabout there, what the crossing for the children would actually be, because you can do it safely, you just do offsets. But I thought that was part of the study we wanted to look at.
And
right?
I just put that in there as pedestrian safe crossings mid-block for students.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we discussed. And Personally, I go through this intersection every day, leaving Fabra. No one knows how to operate a four-way stop.
They forget.
No one. You get up there and you arrive at the same time as three vehicles and everyone panics.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Nobody moves. And it may not be a problem now, but the more Johns Road becomes a access to I-10, the more problems.
So that's an argument for short term?
Could we do it tomorrow?
But as a roundabout?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're horrible.
I think
They're employed by us.
I hadn't really studied roundabouts with crossing guards, but you would think they're going in one direction. So you stop, like I said last time, you stop traffic going in one direction, and it's safer for kids, especially with one, maybe two crossing guards, but now you just need one. You know what I'm saying? You stop everybody in one spot, of course, probably need two for another one, because people are gonna be blocking their
I don't know
crosswalk.
about that logic, but.
All right, we're getting in the weeds there.
Yeah, in the weeds.
All right,
But-
that one's short. Anybody object to short term? Okay, we're good. Okay, item 31, crowdsource, Johns Road in the vicinity of Honeybee Lane, add a center left turn lane.
Doesn't the city have something planned for Johns Road?
I thought it was going to 3 lanes for the whole road or something.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
It's on our thoroughfare plan and on our CIP to take Johns Road to a 3-lane section.
So short term then. We agree with it then?
It requires a whole lot of right-of-way from a couple of key landowners.
Yeah. So,
Making it into a 3-lane road does.
Yes.
So instead, this is just adding it in a certain few spots.
No?
Oh, this is essentially the whole way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's already a turn lane in certain areas, but not all the way.
So we
I
got
support
any objection to adding that one as a short?
short.
Done. 31 we dealt with. That was 31 crowdsource. 31 committee source we dealt with. 36 committee source. Scenic Loop IH-10 to Balconas Creek. That gets coupled with Project 124, which is on the other sheet, which was a project suggested by the interim committee. Basically the same thing.
Support. And it's in the.
Any
Master plan,
objection to
isn't it?
supporting that? Short-term project?
Yes.
Okay, moving to 37.
Hey, I'm sorry. Y'all are moving faster than my brain. And maybe everyone else is following along, but can we just remind, just give me a second to read what the recommendation is before.
This is adding on to what the developer for Corley Farms has to do.
It doesn't add to it, it basically extends what he's done, not adding to where he did
It
it,
extends it, further south?
south and north, so that from the
So
county
in other words,
line.
he only has to do it like right in front of his property?
Correct.
Yeah.
Wow, it's interesting.
Talk to your
And so the-
legislators about rough proportionality, that's all they can make him do.
And so
Well,
is-
actually, it wasn't, it's a,
We actually had the original DA we had, and this is before my time, but the story I was told is the original DA had us requiring them to do a lot more road improvements until the legislation changed and took away our negotiating rights. And so they were able to do a lot less. Thanks, Austin.
Who's on the opposite side? It's already developed. Folks on the opposite side of the road?
There's
I
multiple
mean,
parcels.
is it developed? When they develop, they'd have to widen. There's.
Correct.
Exactly. Okay.
And this is, it's a 4-lane road, right? It says 2 12-foot lanes in each direction.
no, I believe that's the ultimate section. That's probably what was in the interim committee report.
Mhm.
I think what is in right now in the developer section.
So they're 3-lane section with
It's
the
a
right.
3-lane
With
section.
the right T cell at the intersection, yeah.
Okay, so that's describing what the developer's doing.
Would this include sidewalks as well? Because I would think that would be reasonable to start thinking in those terms.
So that goes into, is it a county road or is it a city road section, or what type of road section would we want to put there?
I mean, it's tying into I-10. At some point, it is feasible that there'll be some sort of public transportation that might even just navigate up and down I-10. And suddenly people have access. So,
The other reason that we thought it might be beneficial is that there's an HEB going in at the Balconas I-10 area.
Right.
And so much of the growth is going to come in that area. And it came out of a project subcommittee as a kind of a reasonable thing, because it's HEB is this destination traffic problem. And if you've got all this growth on the southwest quadrant, and they have access to a grocery store, it moves them away from the Cascade Scenic Loop Road intersection and furthers that traffic downstream until you run into Balconas, and then you can cross over I-10 and get to your destination.
To the southeast quadrant.
yeah, I got to put a push in there for some sidewalks as well. It's a no-brainer to me.
But Jeff, you're saying if it's city, y'all require sidewalk.
The city road section requires sidewalks,
Correct.
but the county road section typically do not.
I would tell you, I'm strongly, I don't have a vote, but if I was an engineer and thinking about what's going to happen in 10 years out there, in the likelihood that this will be an MPO project funded substantially by federal transportation dollars with the county and or city putting up a match, I think it needs to go to at least 2 lanes with sidewalks.
And bike lanes.
Do what?
And bike lanes,
Yeah,
usually it's
exactly.
federal.
It needs to go to its ultimate configuration.
Mhm. Short term.
I vote short term as well.
Do y'all want to take it as the MPO project with the full development of sidewalks and bike lanes?
Fine with me.
I would.
It's your, Jeff.
The only comment I'll have is about the bike lanes itself. I mean, in general, there's a lot of push towards shared use
Yep.
paths
Yep.
instead of bike
Yeah.
lanes.
Well, I
right
agree
now.
with, I like that better.
Bike accessibility,
Yes.
not
Like
a
accessibility,
lane.
right.
Yeah,
Well said, well
I
said.
stand corrected.
I like that. Good night. Good
Okay.
night.
All right. Project 37. This is a shared use path from Kendall Estates up to, there's something north of, this is in the,
This will be on the bike and pedestrian maps,
okay,
so you can skip over that one.
so you're gonna, so this goes on the bike,
Correct.
okay? Okay. 38. School Street. Conduct a comprehensive study to identify opportunities to enhance vehicular mobility in some segments and enhance pedestrian mobility and safety in all segments. And the recommendation is for a study.
Short term. That
Yeah.
area's growing big time.
Yesterday, please.
Should we also state something in there about bringing it out of the floodplain as an alternative route to the others?
Yes.
Did y'all hear what Northern's?
I would support Northern in that as well, because we've talked a lot about having something across the north end of town for avoiding the high water when the creeks rise.
Okay. All right. Any objections? Okay. Project 40 at Esser and Adler, establish this as a Main Street bypass by eliminating stop signs and traffic signals with roundabouts and improved roadways as needed. We have addressed this partially with the Adler Road recommendation.
I think the only intersection here that is potentially in question is the 5 Points, right? Like all the other ones, I think are very, like, totally suitable for roundabouts.
I think we've identified them, yeah.
Yeah, and then 5 points could be, I like the suggestions we've seen there, but we've heard pushback on that, I guess, from TxDOT and some other proposals from the Kimley Horn for that location.
Jeff has also flagged some right-of-way issues last time we met, lack thereof, but I guess we would just say, come on, sort it out, buddy.
That's for most, yeah.
I favor this, as you guys know. Like, that's a given.
I favor it as well.
It's short or long? Short?
I like it as short myself, especially given that Adler Road is about to be improved, and if you can do anything to either make this happen or get ready to make it happen, that makes sense to do.
Where were the
I'm assuming
concerns
the
about
Balconas.
right-of-way, Jeff?
For 5 points?
Oh, I'm sorry, for this, I thought Ben said that you had flagged some concerns about right-of-way for roundabouts on this route in general.
So definitely 5 points. So
Okay.
TxDOT and I have concerns there. But then
And that's mainly with like the women's shelter property up there?
correct, there's multiple properties there at the corner and maybe the gas station, even the gas station as well. At Plant, it would be just a matter of shifting the roundabout north to get out of the power substation and gets it onto the city property and the YMCA property,
Right.
which is kind of city property in itself.
No,
Adler-
it is city property. Let's just be clear about
Yeah.
that.
Adler and Esser, it would be, we would kind of have to shift over to the east of the current Adler Road without having to get into the residences there at that intersection.
Maybe right-of-way can be donated for that.
It's not.
Well, one of the things that TxDOT's leery about is if you acquire that service station,
I didn't say to that.
a lot of times it costs more to remediate the old storage tanks, gas tanks, than the whole property's worth. I mean, I've had that happen a number of times.
Seems like the alignments could be adjusted to not have to do that. But I may be in my own naivety there.
But you have to be buying right away on the north side.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll carry that forward with a note that other projects are involved in implementing this concept and that there may be some right-of-way issues involved. Move it forward as a short.
Short.
Yes, and Don, I do recall a previous conversation, we talked that the one right in front of Bernie High School should not be the first one done in the town,
Yeah.
like that needs to be delayed, and so I know we've captured that somewhere else, but.
Yep.
During school hours, it could be monitored with traffic warden.
All right, 43.
You can-
Extend Destiny Drive to Esperanza. And we've said that we can't do that without the concurrence of the Esperanza development because I guess it's private streets.
Right, this one will also be seen on the bike and pedestrian map, so you can skip that one.
Okay, so this goes to bike,
Just,
okay? Next one, 54, crowdsource. Esser, Bentwood to Greyhound Lane. Widen the road and provide turn lanes. Now, that is actually a TxDOT project, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so we'll move that to the TxDOT list, assuming y'all want to keep it on there, and move it to a short-term project.
For TxDOT, might as well give them a short-term, turn into long-term.
Okay.
I'm also not 100% sure that turn lanes are the best. I mean, the Esser is very wide. We've talked about painting some of the, like striping it for bikes, or, I mean, you could even make it 4 lanes in a lot of it. I mean,
This is north of, from Bentwood, which is at, right?
oh, they're not, okay, the arrow on here shows it going all the way
yeah,
down the river
I
road.
just put a note in here for myself to
Yeah,
fix
we need
that.
to shorten up.
Okay, thank you.
It's north of
Yeah.
Kentwood.
North of Bentwood only, okay.
Okay,
It's narrowed down in there, and then once you get up past there, it opens up.
Okay, yeah.
we're getting there. Project 79 on the next page. Old San Antonio Road, Herf to Cascade Caverns. Rehabilitate the road, we said provide 2 lanes and a center left turn lane.
This narrative, I believe, is from the interim report.
It probably is a little more involved about 2-phase construction, and, yeah, and that's probably more appropriate.
And isn't this already been like underway or identified? Or so there's, my understanding is that there's already been some movement on this. Is that right, Jeff? Or am I misremembering?
Well, this was a project that was in the short term or in the interim report. I do know the city, between the MPO project at Cascade and our Menger Creek Bridge project and the Herf intersection that we talked about a little bit ago, kind of the 2 bookends of this roadway segment, we're looking at improving those intersections. So if we get the intersections on both ends improved, it might help the road itself in the middle. There's Parkway and 1 or 2 other intersections that have a lot of turning movements at. But there's, besides that, it's a lot of driveways. It's not a whole lot of intersections.
I think this is a short-term project.
Any objection? Okay, it's done.
It's good, and it's a good safety funding candidate, wouldn't it be?
Probably
I think so.
decent MPO project, too. 80, Project 80, crowdsource Deer Creek Drive. Extend Deer Creek from Vista Verde to Destiny Drive. Remove the gate.
Is there?
Northern, is this, I know we've discussed it on the trail side
Sorry,
for
this is the wrong.
connectivity. If it doesn't make the cut for vehicular travel, we'd hope it would make the connectivity travel for pedestrians and bikes.
Which one? I think she pulled up the wrong one.
Yeah, I got the wrong one.
Wasn't it?
This is between Bentwood
Right here.
and Champion Heights.
Oh,
So there's a vehicle gate that's there today. There's an easy way for pedestrians to walk through a dirt trail around the gate, but there's not a sidewalk or any other improved current.
There's a sidewalk from the gate south.
Yes, the gate south, there's sidewalks, but from the gate north, there's not sidewalks. And you can, there's kind of a goat trail out there. You can see people are using it to walk.
Walter Bates. Closed gate. I mean, we've talked about connectivity a lot. I'm sure the neighbors aren't going to favor it, but to me, it just makes a lot of sense. I mean, you have a gate blocking traffic in an area that could use more connectivity and
But
flow.
are they both public roads on each side?
So on the south side, it is a public road. On the north side, it's a parcel. It's not truly right of way, but it's a parcel that's owned by the city. There used to be a lift station at that property, but then that lift station was removed.
You're splitting hairs there.
I totally agree.
Right.
This is one
It's
of them
public
we talked
property.
about.
Right away and public property are different.
That's true, that's true.
But
in
this
my-
is one we talked about,
Literally.
having a gate where they could get through doing school hours. And that was in some of your other stuff.
I think we should just open it up.
I think
This
it
was-
needs to just be
Yep.
open. I just.
This
open
guy
it.
was talking about the one on the southwest
No, they're-
quadrant for the 2 subdivisions.
Exactly. We have a gate on the other side of town, with 2 public roads that has a gate. So it's
No, we're talking
very
about
similar.
removing the vehicular gate right now
Just move.
Correct,
as a short-term matter.
short term.
Very short term.
Got it. Okay, Project 85.
Just accidentally unlock it.
The comment on that will be, good luck, bucko.
I believe we got rid of this one.
Yeah, I had it down, I thought we had, so we're rejecting 85. We've got other plans.
It's that chair.
99, 99 crowdsource. This is the section you were talking about, Jonah, south on Esser Road from that Bentwood intersection.
Okay. Yeah, the arrow, I guess, needs to be fixed.
Yeah, I'm
on
gonna
this
have
one,
to
too.
create
Yeah.
a second one for this.
I had down that we rejected that in favor of project 4054. That's a different project. Okay, are we gonna do that as a short-term project, right?
Yes.
Okay. Project 100, Dietz Elkhorn, Fair Oaks Parkway, install a roundabout.
This is a committee decision, and I know one council didn't want it. The second council, the existing council, I don't think spoke up on its behalf, but as a citizen, I think it works quite well.
It's nice seeing that schematic on there. It does look like it works with very minimal impact.
Well, there's some drainage issues that are going to cost, but it can be worked out.
See, right now drainage goes down center. We'd have to move.
Is there a significant congestion issue currently right there, or is this more of a long-term project?
I don't think there's a whole lot of congestion, so if that's what kicks it over to long-term, I don't take offense it being a long-term.
Will the HEB affect it?
I think it will. I think HEB will affect that entire area, so yes.
They build fast. When they decide to go, they go.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, so what's your preference, long or short?
Go ahead, Dale.
Well, the recommendation talked about it would greatly improve, and if HCB go in there, I'd say short term.
Any objection to short term? It's done. Next one, item 101, City Park Road, State Highway 46 to Charger Boulevard. Evidently it's being used as a cut-through. We were going to implement some traffic calming measures on there and pedestrian amenities.
Yeah, and this is one I'm personally, I drive I office at the Nature Center a few days a week, and there's all the time dead turtles and deer and all kinds of stuff in that beautiful tree tunnel. So fun to drive down, but it's wildlife corridor. So I would actually recommend, and I haven't explored them all, but that example I shared with you guys from Crested Butte, I thought that was a really neat traffic calming solution that could be effective there. But whatever y'all come up with, or whatever.
Can you remind us what that was?
They basically had boxed planters with flowers and stuff in them growing. Like they put it in the road, and they put a yield sign, so you'd have to slow down and yield to traffic coming your way, and before you could go around it. And so it was still two-way traffic, but when cars were coming, you'd have to slow down and let them go around it, and then you'd go around it. And it seemed like it worked surprisingly well. I mean, and I know Bernie is biased against speed bumps, and so this seems like another option.
There's several ways to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, short term.
Short term.
Do any comments on that one?
Project 105, crowdsource, extend Caulk Lane to Cibolo Crossing. I think we talked that was a long-term project. There's not really any congestion there. It was more of a connectivity.
I'd say. Aren't we misspelling Caulk?
I don't know.
There's a U there. Since the stuff comes out of a tube, it doesn't
No, the
CAL.
street, isn't that street over by?
It's right off of School Street.
Yeah. And didn't we talk about this? We had some options.
Yeah, we talked about it.
Was it CALK?
Said not do it.
I remember us saying not
I missed
to
it.
do this. Do y'all not remember that?
Yeah, I do.
remember that.
We said not to do it.
Yeah, it was because we voted, we said to do it, and then we had a call in the next meeting. Somebody who obviously had family in that retirement center who
That-
planned with
that
us to
lived off of that
reconsider, and we
street.
did. They just said it was gonna just be a really bad idea for those residents.
So we rejected
And the
it?
committee bought
I
it.
think we did.
I don't know. I am still of the mind that, it's a curvy, windy little street that would be nice to have. I don't see that street as I drive by it as a cut through, but it might be a nice connection to have, especially if there's a flood.
It's just CALK.
Yeah, okay.
We get it.
There's a U there. No.
Yeah, and I know that some people brought up concerns about the elderly home there, living center, but I felt like it looked like that is set off of that main road.
And at least make it pedestrian and bike friendly. Bringing that up again, because it did come up in the trail, and it was a crowdsource request for pedestrian and bike as well.
And that is out of the floodplain.
Okay.
I support this one.
Can you use the aerial?
Any opposed?
Okay, here's what, this is the
Yeah,
picture.
I wanted for them to see.
What's going on with
Yeah,
this
I've
end
been
of
out there,
San
so
Antonio?
You
where it
can't,
goes into
I mean, you
nothing?
can't safely cross right now.
Yeah, like with a bike or
So that's the
anything.
issue.
All right, let's move on to
Agree
116.
with your point.
You got support.
Crowdsource 116, Ammon Road. Soften the northern sharp curve.
Sorry, back on caulk, was that short or long?
I put down long.
Okay.
Last one was short.
Long, what?
Caulk,
Who's on first?
Medium. No, I'm kidding. Sorry.
caulk is short.
Okay.
Yes,
Kidding, I'm kidding. Short.
yes.
Not medium.
Easy to do.
Interim Committee number 124, Scenic, Interim Committee 116, Ammon Road. Soften the north sharp curve.
Now I have both curves with the circle, but I can change it easily.
So you have both curves? I mean,
Um,
it doesn't make sense to me.
She got two dots.
This is,
Okay.
I would say short term.
This is the north, okay.
No, it's actually, we're changing it to be both of them.
290s.
I think I got this narrative from the interim report, maybe. I'm not sure where I got this
I
narrative.
don't think we had that in it.
I believe that was mine. Y'all requested it from me, so.
Okay, that's where I got it from.
Did I hear that City of Fair Oaks Ranch is already planning something up here or doing a study?
They are. This is the similar situation on Old Fredericksburg Road where it's two very sharp 90s and people are driving off the edge. They're still speeding through there and not using the pavement.
Yep.
And it tears up the shoulder all the time.
Okay, so we're going short on that?
Can I ask a couple questions? I know we're making good progress here. I don't want to slow us down, but the southern one there, the property owner at the corner this is Bernie Ranch Estates LLC, so that's not a development that's going in on that one. That one seems pretty straightforward. The other one is Lawrence Smith is the name of the guy who owns that property, and it does look like it cuts pretty close to their house.
The schematic doesn't get too close to that. I mean, that was
Have
the
you seen
one where
that?
TxDOT actually had a safety project there,
Okay.
and it takes a few trees, but
I think they should take the same precautions and steps that we voted on Old Fredericksburg.
I don't recall that one.
Old Fredericksburg,
But-
all the
Right.
90s.
Right, so my one recommendation would be like maybe in addition that there could be some traffic calming measures used as well. Because right now I know they have a sign, I know there's a blinking light, maybe rumble strips on the road, but there might be additional things that could be done to slow people down from, hitting those curves at 90 miles an hour.
So what is happening just to the east of that first bend coming from Bernie, if you will?
This one?
Yeah, so it's
To
the
the-
Zellers.
Yeah, this is the other property.
What is happening to the east of that first bend?
Yeah, that's,
There's two driveways that enter right at that elbow.
okay.
I thought there was, wasn't that the one that the Mayor
Ranches
Farrow
Estates.
gave the presentation on about it continuing, a
That-
development going in
that
and
is-
continuing straight?
That is a long term. If that is presented that way, I would support that one as a long-term project when development happens.
Right.
In that part.
So, yeah,
There's another one that takes you through George Ranch, George Ranch,
George
and then
Ranch,
comes through.
Which is what Jonah did.
That's development driven too, and I think we supported that one. So
10 acres.
this one should be short, just for safety purposes.
Yeah, because this is,
okay. So we're going to soften two sharp curves and consider traffic calming devices as a short-term project. Okay, going to the next one. Project 124, Scenic Loop, IH-10 to Balconas Creek. We did that one already. Correct?
Could we see it again? I think
Yeah, it was over here as project
that's the one that was.
36.
36.
That's
So I need to create a
One,
second
what number?
one.
172? Oh, I'm sorry, 124.
124.
36.
Yeah, we looked at 36.
Okay, the next one. Project 125, crowdsource, West Hossack extended to Lattimore.
Is that 10 acres?
I have nothing to do with that one.
Big swath. Yeah, well, you're in the,
Can't design it.
West.
I think this section at least is about to develop. The first section at the east.
Well, that would require a bridge over Frederick Creek.
Where does Frederick Creek go?
So this would be a thoroughfare plan solution, is my guess.
That,
And the thoroughfare plan does show a connect Lattimore extending all the way to South School Street, not where this red line is shown more, but further to the south on School.
Well, that piece of property right at the corner of Hossack and School is being developed. That's the old Jones property.
Correct.
So that alignment wouldn't be any good.
Seems like it would be more of a West Highland Drive to West San Antonio connection. The reason being that West Highland can cross 46, straight off into Oak Park.
because Lattimore is all backyards, and West Hossack has quite a few front yards, but further to the east. And West Highland still has not a whole lot of residential fronting West Highland, so that's another reason maybe West Highland.
I think the problem you're going to get into is this apartment complex that's already going through approval process has the road on it. Right, Jeff?
Well, yeah, it's a single-family project, but yeah, there's a roadway on it that they're extending the roadway all the way to the dead end of their property. But they're not on our thoroughfare route.
I think if the thoroughfare plan already has a route that connects those two, I don't know that the details of it matter so much. I would just say we support the
We
thoroughfare.
support it.
Yeah.
And putting a bridge there.
I mean, I don't know how they would build it without the bridge, so I'd just say, I don't know why it needs to be in here. If it's already in thoroughfare plan and we support it, then maybe it's not worth even having long term.
Yeah, I think this needs to be eliminated.
Got a rejection here.
Why do you think it needs to be eliminated? I'm just curious.
Well, first of all, it runs to a brand-new house they're working on. And then secondly, you're building a 100-year frequency bridge over the Frederick Creek.
But the thoroughfare plan has it doing the same almost, except going to West Highland. Does it not cross the creek in its route to West Highland?
Yeah, same thing.
Then I think we should reject this one, but support its connection to West Highland.
That's where I was leaning.
Actually, I think it comes in the middle.
Would it have to be a 100-year bridge, or are lower crossings out of the, so.
Doesn't
it
have
doesn't
to,
have to
no.
be considered one of those sort of major safety reliefs.
Where am I? Right there.
Well, there's
Although
a
it
pretty
could.
good drop-off there, so the high bridge would fit.
Yeah, it should be, it would be much more expensive.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and basically we'd be building a bridge in there. Well, I was thinking it was primarily for that neighborhood, but actually it looks like Lattimore connects all the way to John's. So
And Lattimore would connect all the way to John's and then continue all the way to
School.
1376.
And
Fabra is right here. Don't forget the schools.
yeah,
Yeah, and it does not go through front yards.
I think it makes sense because,
Yeah, it needs to be at Highland.
All right, so I don't discern any strong preference one way or the other here.
The thoroughfare plan ties it to West Highland. I'd move to,
The thoroughfare plan puts it in the middle, right here.
puts them, that's right.
I think it makes sense to tie it to West Highland myself. Not necessarily directly, but somehow they need to interact.
But go to Hossack.
No, as in you come
I mean,
across
to
West
Lattimore,
Highland and you
excuse me.
head it over to West San Antonio.
So we're talking about
Yeah,
extending.
Lattimore, right.
extending Lattimore to Old San Antonio. I'm sorry, to School Street
School Street.
and
And West Highland.
under study by the city or
I-
after study by the city and where to connect it.
I think if it's a long-term project that's built through the thoroughfare process,
Exactly.
right, as projects develop, I do think that the bridge, the decision on whether or not to pay that expense is going to be a decision that people have to make once the properties are purchased. It might not be that they do that for quite a while, just 'cause-
Okay, so as I understand it, we're going to extend Lattimore to School Street in conjunction with the major thoroughfare plan.
Yes, sir.
And so we're going to move that to an MTP project.
Yes, sir.
And it's not necessarily West Hossack that's being extended.
That's correct.
I
It's
agree
more,
with that.
more
I don't
West
know if you're
Highland Drive. I think
Okay.
West Highland's just more sensible connector. Yeah.
I'll put a large.
And that's a major thoroughfare plan project. Okay, we all good there?
Yes.
Okay. 128, crowdsource, Telford Way / Jordan Place, remove gate to facilitate school traffic.
Yes.
Have a cutting torch, anyone?
Is it?
This is similar to the one that we had before,
Oh,
right?
this is the one that's
This is the one I
public and
mentioned.
public.
We have
Yes.
2 public roads that have a gate. In
Very short term.
Remove the gate.
Yeah.
Very short
Cutting
term.
torch.
Tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, amen.
Immediate status.
Yeah, I think that has a lot
Got
of school bus implications too.
Yeah.
All right.
By the way, there'll be a group of people heading over there after this meeting with
Right.
bolt cutters.
The mob. Project 172, crowdsourced, Upper Balconas, improved road. I think Bobby Bailly wrote a narrative on this. Looks like a small novel.
It's,
That's a compliment.
it's very techy.
It's very-
We talked about this last time.
Yeah. The question is whether it's long or short.
Short. Well, considering,
Is there a way to just say what this project is in a few words? Because I'm reading through there, I'm not. Future.
Yeah, it's called Fix the Road.
Well, a lot of it's just descriptor.
but, and widen.
You'd be right away, so it'd be a long term, wouldn't it, Bobby?
Yeah, and for the vertical curve, some of the curves that are
Yeah, it sounds long.
It's a long.
Long term.
long term.
Yeah.
Long term, I agree.
All right. Project 184, crowdsource, Adler Road. That's a short-term project. It's already underway.
It's underway.
Project 211, crowdsource, Best Street, Wanda to South Main. Provide traffic calming or Bob will have you out there with his shotgun. That's a short-term project. You got narrative on that, right?
Yeah, I'd already given it.
Okay.
It's a short novel on the project sheet.
And then there's one here that didn't really have a project number, but it was Coffrin Road. We added it at the last meeting because it was a part of the interim committee's report.
Oh, yeah.
And it is actually being studied right now. I believe it should be a short-term project.
Yes,
Yeah.
short term. Wow. Yeah.
Okay. We're done. Northern, do you have any more projects over there that I don't have?
So what I can do is I will go through these, I'll finish, I just have a few more from the TxDOT list we went through last meeting. I have a few more to edit. I'll send those out hopefully in the next few days. I'll go through these and edit them, and then I'll figure out if there's anything left over that I still have not addressed that we need to go over. So other than that, we will still have the pedestrian in the bubbles around the schools to go over. So that's it.
I mean, do we need to go over those? I mean, they're going to be what they are, and we're in support of implementing safe routes to schools for those particular areas, right?
There are a few that I did pull out, or actually I had already created a project sheet for them because it was something that we discussed and all agreed needed to happen, like this one, the River Road Hawk signal. So this one, I just, in my own mind, I thought I will leave that as its own project sheet.
Okay,
because
that's
it's so
fine.
important.
Yeah.
But the rest will look like this, the maps. And actually, I need to get with Comfort ISD to make sure that that is, kind of goes along with what they need.
Okay.
So at one point, we had talked, I thought, about creating a short-term list of trail recommendations that are not necessarily purely safe routes, but are actually about connecting places with trails. So as an example, I think some of us who are on the committee were favorable to finding a way to connect Fair Oaks Ranch to Bernie, for example, or connect Bernie to Albert and Bessie Kronkowski State Natural Area, right? Things that could be recommended for thoroughfare plans to help facilitate those outcomes, as well as, just to show some full committee interests and support. How does that strike y'all as something to throw in there with the rest of these pedestrian discussions?
Are those covered in the trails?
They're in the vision. Yeah. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there.
But for example, to get from Fair Oaks on a bike to Longhorn,
right,
to meet friends on a bike, that's a trek on a bike. The different spot.
Do you know these bike people?
Yeah, for them, that's like a
but if
hop,
you,
skip, and a jump.
But you have recreation, you have exercise, you have, it's a hobby, but some people just use a bike for transportation.
Yeah.
And it's a trek to get from the middle of Fair Oaks to the middle of Bernie. And you got to put your life at risk, going down some narrow 2-lane road. Or, at least the frontage roads have a striped off lane.
So we're talking about trying to solve that
Yes.
in the near term, obviously, or whatever.
Ben, I'm going to give you this answer. There are a couple of projects that have come up, or initiatives that have come up. One is Highway 87 in Comfort. We're in front of the school zone that they've had some traffic issues since school started. And we've debated, Gary and I have talked about, should we try to shoehorn it in here? And ultimately said, no, there's going to be some effort after this committee. And rather than delay completion of our work, let's leave that off and let it be addressed in the subsequent round. And there was something else that we, I can't remember what was the other thing that we had like that.
Well, Don, I would dare say that even the last 6 months and into the next 6 months, there's going to be a handful of projects as the community continues to evolve and grow, and we cannot stop what we're doing just to try to find those. Tim's project the other day, our ongoing discussions with TxDOT about 27,473.
Right.
If we try to put those particular projects in, they're not going to be fully vetted within our structure. And at some point, the public entities are going to have to determine how these discussions continue moving forward to look at those independent projects.
Mm-hmm.
And I would think that where we are with the pedestrian and the trails are the infancy and have to be discussed and fully vetted as we move forward. I'm not sure we want to stop what we're doing. I know Don doesn't want to continue, and Bob continue this committee ad nauseum.
Well, the other point is, since the committee included it in the policy recommendations and throughout in a number of places based on your advocacy, Ben, and then making that plan as an attachment is going to draw a lot more public interest in the whole topic, and therefore I think will help have more public input on any short or long-term plan that you come up with and get more buy-in. So
I did see at least the connection of Fair Oaks to Bernie in the policy statements. I didn't see the 27, but I can assist with a short one, a policy statement to make sure it's in there. Ben, I don't remember if that one is in there. I know it's in our map, but it's not narrated. In other words, let's narrate it, put it small, make it small, put it somewhere in the current document. But very general. Don't solve it now. It's just like connect Fair Oaks to Bernie. You're not solving it. You're just saying what the issue is.
isn't that in your vision, though?
I mean, yes, it is an
I
division.
think, yeah.
It's, I mean, I guess what I was looking at though is from the standpoint of sort of formally recommending it for like, say,
Project
a thoroughfare plan, you know. In that case, it would be a city and, City of Bernie and a City of Fair Oaks Ranch.
Well, I feel really good about where y'all's recommendation is in terms of how comprehensive it is and the different facets of micromobility and bike and walking. I just really think that that's going to form the basis of going forward.
So you think it adds enough leverage to garner the attention that
I believe it does. I think we've got enough passionate people in the community now that will not just let that sit and just fall away.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what Don just shared. Your subcommittee did superb work, and it's comprehensive, it's visionary, and it has a lot of momentum behind it. You're going to have to keep it up if you want it to be a reality. I don't think it needs to be embedded any more thoroughly in our work than it already is, because I think it's there in a profound way.
Okay. All right. I mean, I'm good. You know, you're on my committee. You good? Or?
I think there's wording there. We just got to make sure it's set. I have yet to be part of taking the policy statements and making them fit. So I don't know what's in it yet, Mr. Chairman, because there's a few policy statements that state that. And as long as we use those and put them in, it's covered in the document.
I think that's all done.
I believe so.
Okay.
We'll see next week. What is left to do on the report is complete the local government projects initiative and tidy these sheets up. We need to get the graphics added in. We've seen one draft of the formatted report, and I think Bob and I are happy with it. And I hope to be able to share that with you with graphics in 2 weeks. We'll add the Cow Creek Groundwater Conservation District and the Trinity. Is it Trinity Groundwater Conservation District or Trinity?
Glen Rose.
Okay.
Trinity Glen
Need to
Rose.
add that resolution into the appendices.
Dr. Vinnie's.
What?
And
Dr. Vinnie's. Bob and I, and I think the graphics design people decided we originally had the interim report included as an Appendix A. I think we've decided that that's redundant and that we're just going to eliminate that. And we're going to move Dr. Vinnie's report to Appendix A so it's first and foremost. And I've gotten that from Ben, so that's ready to go. Bob's done a lot of his executive summary, and wrapping it up was contingent on today. Northern's doing well on her project sheets. She's got the MPO, Major Thoroughfare Plan sheets done, lacks 4 on TxDOT, and pretty much has local government with what is left today. So I expect to be getting those from her in the next week to 10 days, and then the school project sheets. And then we'll publish for draft and give you 2 weeks or so to.
Sorry. Ben.
It's all right. You guys are just misbehaving over there.
It started.
We'll publish a draft and let y'all have your comments on that, and then hopefully we'll be wrapped up.
I'll give you that.
Questions?
Next Tuesday?
Which one?
So I do have a question. Can we take the recommendations that Kate offered us about hitting kind of a little media blitz to let people know that draft is out and available to be reviewed, maybe on some of the social media sites, plus the paper, and give ourselves at least an opportunity to let the public take a look at it?
Budget?
You're suggesting we do that right now or once we publish it to the committee?
Once we publish it to the committee, are we taking feedback from the public, or are we just going to put it out there as a done deal?
I would like to give it to the committee members and let them look at it. There may be, I've read that thing so many times, I'm starting to read what I think it reads instead of what it actually reads. But,
Right.
And just general comments that we can clear up pretty quick, and then once we can have consensus approval, I think then we roll it out and we tell our agencies, the cities, and the county, okay, we've finished our work. We're ready to lay it out to you, steering committee members. I mean, that's the county judge and two county commissioners, and to the public at the same time. Two mayors, excuse me. And that then we would take feedback, or they will take feedback. It's up to them.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Durden, I remember.
Mr. Durden, yes,
sorry.
Mr. Evans.
Thank you. I'm about to say something very important and official. No, I recall there being some discussion about a very, very short list, a top 5 projects that should be implemented right away to address. Is there still discussion about that? Is that in the plan, or I'm just curious if you can address that.
Cut the locks.
Do we still need to select those, like prioritize?
Well, and in terms of time expediency, what Don and I have talked about doing is, once we have this compiled list of everything that's a short-term recommendation, and everything that's a long-term recommendation, everything that's a policy recommendation, Don and I have sat here for the same 3 years that you people have been here, and we would like to take a first cut at identifying what those top few within each of those categories are, and say, can you guys live with this list?
Mm-hmm.
So that, because we could spend another year debating which were the top 5, what would, if we're going to vote, how many colored dots we're going to use, and who's going to agree or disagree with the weighting factors. So what we talked about privately is doing it that way. Just have us do the first cut and see if you guys have heartburn over our assessment of it. Because I don't think either one of us has any intention of misreading the committee's wishes.
That's fine with me. It's more efficient to edit a strategy than it is to originate one.
And I think some of them are very obvious. I think Herfinesser is obviously on there, and maybe 5 Points is obviously on there. There's a couple that are just that seem blatantly obvious things to do.
And as long as they help congestion in downtown Bernie, I think this was the whole reason all of this started.
Yeah.
Am I correct? So as long as they help downtown Bernie.
Running Adler Road right through the farm. That's
Yeah,
sure.
perfect. Yeah. I've got to make sure that new people moving into subdivisions have lots of easy ways to town.
Any other questions before we go to public comment?
When I send these to you guys, please read them. Just like Don said, I don't see the typos anymore. I don't see the mistakes. I read what I think it says. So please look at every single thing and let me know if you catch something. That's all.
All right, thank you. Y'all did really good work today. We're at 3:58. We'll go ahead and take some public comments. So the floor is open for public comment. Don't tell me we're going to finish 2 minutes early today.
Did do good work today.
Lance is out of town.
That's it's Mr. Emmer noted. All right, thank you. Ms. Rudd, not even anything from you? Oh, you're a sweetheart. Thank you so much. All right, we will see y'all in 2 weeks. We're adjourned.
Ben, I got it. Thank you.